Morning. Thanks for having me this morning. Do we have the lights on? Yeah. So I'm talking about MILOOP device today, and I was thinking about what to say about this device, and this fits into my sort of philosophy on cataract in that since we've switched from extra caps to phaco, these dense brunescent cataracts have been the bane of cataract extraction. It's the most difficult problem that you could deal with. And this device, I think, in the last 20 years or so, at least in my experience, is the one that really puts a dent into this problem. So I'm excited to talk about it. So let's see now. This is the ring button. I have no financial disclosure, although I came close to having a financial interest in this thing. This was invented by one of our ex-residents, and he actually came down to give a talk at our innovations meeting. And even prior to that, when it was just an idea, he told me about it and he asked me to invest in it, and I let it go. And but I heard it actually just sold to Zeiss, and so these things do come to commercialization, and please come to our innovations conference later on next year. So this is the device called MILOOP. Just out of curiosity, how many people in the audience have used this? Great. Okay, excellent. So basically, it's a is there a laser right here? So it's a very simple device, like a pen. The tip, this is the working end right here. It's basically made of nitinol. It's a metal that is known for having shape memory. Okay, and so it's basically just a loop of wire, and but it's because of its shape memory, it's shaped to conform to the profile of the cataract, right? And basically you advance and retract this lever to open and close this loop. Okay, it's a very simple idea. Basically you use this as a cheese wire to cut through the cataract. Okay, so that's it. So it's a very simple device. Okay, so let's go and show some video. Let's play the video. So basically this is the device. So you put it into the eye, you expand it, and you kind of loop around the cataract itself. Then you swing it underneath the cataract, and you overshoot a little bit, you come back, and then you're in position. You want to stick your second instrument in to kind of hold the cataract in place, and then you just close that loop, and the cheese wires through it. Okay, and you bisect the cataract, and that's it. Okay, and it's great for very dense cataract because it, once it's done, it is already bisected. And the best thing about it is that it frees it from the capsule. Oftentimes when you're chopping, when you're dividing and conquering, the cataract after it's cracked is still kind of stuck together like a jigsaw puzzle. And sometimes it doesn't freely move within the bag. Well, this thing, because of that sweeping motion, is completely freed of the bag when you're done with it, and it's completely separated. There's no little fibers that's still holding the two pieces together. It's complete. So even though you may only bisect it, it still makes the surgery a lot easier. But once you get more advanced, you can rotate this thing, you can quarter it. Sometimes you can even make it into sextets, okay? And then it basically makes the rest of the surgery a little bit easier, okay? All right, stop the video. Let's have the lights on, please. Okay. So there are just a few things that you need to be aware of when you're using this. So this is the list, basically. So when you enter the eye, the loop should be on the right, although it's not a hard and fast rule. I put my incision off to the right a little bit. So when you put the loop in, to the right, it's a little bit of an awkward angle. So I actually put the loop in facing left. But but you retract this so you minimize that loop, and you can turn it inside the eye once you're in. Okay, and then there's a black mark on the handle itself, and you want to put that right at the limbus. Okay, let's see now. I'll show you that more. Well, it's sort of over here. You can't really see it very well, but there's a mark. Okay, so you position that right at the limbus. Otherwise, you maintain a 20-degree angle. Okay, with respect to flat line, the pen should come in sort of at a 20-degree angle. And you know, when I first was doing this, Gloria kept saying, you gotta make sure it's 20 degrees and da, da, da. But I find that it naturally just goes into that position. And when you're phacoing, you're basically holding the phaco at that angle normally anyway. So you don't really have to think about it too much. You don't just normally go into that position for you. And then once you're in position, you want to keep that loop sort of not planar with the floor. It normally will kind of bend down a little bit towards the right, okay? And as you expand, this thing will disappear under the loop. So it'll kind of look scary the first time, but that's the way it's supposed to be, okay? And it'll actually look like it's already wrapping around the cataract as you're expanding that, okay? But it's actually just getting into position. Okay, so once it's fully expanded, then you hold it with two hands and you just rotate it very gently, and you can see the posterior aspect of this thing. It'll come sweep around the posterior capsule, around the posterior aspect of the cataract. And you want to have it sweep past the midline a little bit, and then you come back to the midline. Okay? At this point, you insert your second instrument again, just to hold the cataract in place as you're bisecting that cataract. Otherwise, it has a tendency to kind of pop up, which is not a big deal. Even if it does, it's not a end of the world. And then you repeat if you are comfortable with this. Now, when you're repeating, sometimes, because these two pieces are completely free, it's a kind of a foreign concept if you do cataract surgery, if you do phacoemulsification, right? You're even though it's cracked, like I said, it's still kind of stuck in there. But with this, these two pieces are really free. It's a kind of a different scenario. So when you're rotating and when you're repositioning for that second bisection, it's sometimes not as easy as it is to sweep it around and get an exact 90-degree bisection. But it doesn't matter if you can cut it into, you know, a quarter versus 3/4, or a third versus 2/3. It's still, the idea is to disassemble the cataract, so it still is helpful. So the advantages of this device. It's zero energy, right? There's no phaco involved. It's safe to the endothelium, and even though it looks bulky, I think is better for the endothelium. It's great for dense nuclei. As I said, you get a complete cleavage of the cataract. It's freely mobile within the capsule. There's really nothing else that does this. Okay, and it's relatively inexpensive. I think it's $120 or something like that to the surgery center. Now this compares to what? The femtosecond laser, right? Which is 300,000, 400,000 or something like that. And what do we use the femtosecond laser for? Do we really need a perfectly round capsulorhexis, capsulotomy? It's nice to have it, but you know, most surgeons who are good do a pretty good capsulorhexis. It's pretty round, you know, and so long as it's centered. Does it really matter that it has to be perfectly round, or you know, if it's scalloped a little bit, does that really decenter the IOL, right? But you know, femtosecond I think helps in than sort of more dense cataract in that it sort of cuts the cataract. But in very, very dense cataract, it's still problematic, right? In white cataract, you can't really bisect it too well. In very, very dense cataracts, it's always a question as to whether it really pre-cuts it very, very well. And the deeper it goes, it's questionable. So you may sort of get a partial section rather than a true separation. Also, the amount of energy that's used in these very dense cataracts is problematic. And you always question whether the bag is going to be there after the femto is done, the bubbles and that sort of thing. So this device, MILOOP, is a kind of a direct competitor to it. It's totally the opposite end of the spectrum. It's a very low-tech device, and yet it has several advantages over this. So this device also has a place in third world cataract surgery and mission trips. I'm sure will save a lot of time and energy and a lot of eyes. Learning curve issues. So the first time you try to stick it in the eye, it's a bulky thing. It's very sizable. It's a little bit intimidating. But if you just ignore that and just do these things, you've seen the video, that's the way it's supposed to be. It's actually fairly easy. Really not too much of a learning curve. It's one of the easier techniques, devices that I've had to learn in the last 20 years. Entry position, as I said, if you swing the incision to the right a little bit, you may have to adjust that a little bit. It's not a big deal. And you can do multiple sectioning of the cataract. These pictures I cobbled through different presentations. That's why there's not a unifying theme. But anyway, so I want to talk a little bit about the development of this. Again, Sean Inchalev was one of our residents at Doheny, and this guy's pretty amazing actually. He's developed several products that have come to market. So you probably know the Aura was done. And this was done at Doheny, the very, very beginning stages of it. He was a resident, and he was using the auto-refractor to take measurement of the refraction of the eye intraoperatively before surgery, and that then developed into this intraoperative aberrometry, and that's part of our premium cataract surgery suite now. The SiPass, he then went on to work for Transcend, and he was a big part of that development, and now the Yontech development of the MILOOP. So we're very proud of one of our ex-Doheny residents' accomplishments. So in summary, it's a simple little tech device for cataract disassembly. It really is not a difficult thing to have. It's not that expensive. Learning curve is not that steep, and it really is very helpful in a particular segment of your cataract surgery. Yes, sir.
Two quick questions. Have you ever had a catheter rupture using this yourself?
No.
Have you tried it on nodular resistance pre-existing?
Yes. So this device actually is good for zonular weakness because that sweeping motion doesn't really stress the zonules. Unlike, for instance, chopping or cracking or spinning.